Hey folks, for Mr. Josh Cameron in the studio with me today and myself, it is still 2018, right at the edge, 12/30/2018. But because this is a podcast that does not air live and I am a working man, it's going to probably show up in 2019. So happy fucking New Year!
Happy fucking New Year!
Mr. Josh, you're way out there in Utah. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well. It's snowing like a motherfucker out here, man.
Really?
We had a white Christmas, but it waited until the ass end, sometime around 6 p.m. before it finally started snowing.
Yeah.
And then had a couple of days without it, and then now it's snowing again, which is good because last couple of years we've been a little low on snowpack. This year so far we're on par, but on par makes it sound like, okay, well, things are good, but if you're on par, but the last couple of years we're not, then that means that you're still in a deficit, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully we can make up.
But man, up here in Maine, normally we would be on par by now, but we're not. We've had 2 snows, I think, total. The last one came and went as soon as it showed up. It melted away. And the very next day, it was like 55 degrees outside. People were leaving the windows open. And we haven't seen snow since.
Dude, it was in the 50s just this week. And yeah,
it's so crazy.
Some fun weather. Yeah, Utah is known for having kind of what's known as the Indian summer. And we get those a decent amount.
Yeah.
So
New Englanders like to say, if you don't like the weather, wait around 5 minutes, right?
That's literally anywhere you go. Like I drove over the road in a semi-truck across the U.S. and I swear every fucking state says that. I lived in Indiana for 7 years and they said that. And yeah, in Utah you can have 4 seasons in a single day. It's pretty interesting.
Well, I have to ask before we dive into the topics there, but did Santa bring you everything you wanted?
Kind of. I had a little bit of so you've watched The Simpsons, right?
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of a situation where I bought Marge a bowling ball and had Homer inscribed on it, but in this case, Marge was my son, and the bowling ball was a PS4. But yeah. So I've been joking with people just at my work about how I got my son a PS4, and it's gonna be the best present I got for Dad. I mean, my son. And then they all started laughing. But yeah.
That's a really good idea,
dude. Spider-Man is fucking insane. The story is so good, and it's I'm such a sucker for superhero stories because they kind of suggest the best of human potential, and I think that's. Like, for me, I think my sense of compassion and empathy derives from fantasy novels. So,
definitely,
a superhero is very much fantastical. Yeah, and I'm definitely a sucker and drawn on.
The hero story has always been a favorite of the human being. It definitely, you always got to remind yourself of our potential. It's not that you're ever going to achieve the thing you're aiming at. It's just that you're aiming at it.
No shit. So what about you, bud? What did you get for Christmas?
Oh, my goodness. Well, my girlfriend pleased the absolute heck out of me and got me... Okay, so audience out there, I have been operating several businesses using milk crates as my desk because I didn't really have a desk. I had a square of wood that was sitting on top of 3 milk crates that had a drape over it, and another milk crate that had my keyboard on it, and then a normal chair, of course. And I was having to hold my microphone with my hand. And so through the miracle of Christmas, or just because we're all obligated to get our capitalist sacrifice on, my awesome girlfriend got me a walnut desk that's an L-shaped desk, and I got a microphone stand that extends off of the desk and a brand new monitor in front of me that doesn't have blotchy red marks all over it like I did with my 15-year-old flat screen TV. So I had a major upgrade to the thing I'm using the most to produce these podcasts and do other various activities out there in the political world. So I am ever grateful.
Which I'm sure it was a bit of a bittersweet thing for her because it's awesome to see how much it helped you and how much happier you are with these great upgrades. But then at the same time, it's also going to draw your attention away from her even more. So it's kind of a weird situation for her, I'm sure. But yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, we work out a pretty good schedule.
Yeah. Well, that's great, dude. Sounds like you got a fantastic girlfriend there, dude. Yeah. So my real quick, another Christmas thing. Fuck, dude.
Yeah.
If you get a kid, It's the only kid who's like the only grandkid around. Since my wife is Salvadoran, they celebrate on Christmas Eve.
Yep.
So we went to her aunt's place, where my wife's cousin's there, my wife's aunt's there, and so we show up. My kid's the only grandkid around, gets like 7 presents. It's like, holy fuck. So then the next day we go to my mom's house, and then he gets like 5 presents from my mom and my stepdad, and then my brother comes in, and he knew I was getting him a PS4, so he got him a PS4 controller. So now we have 2. He got him Lego Dimensions, so it's this Lego game where you play Lego characters in the game, but then you also build with Legos to create certain things like a Batmobile, or like there's this fucking portal that we had to build. Yeah, right. And there's a base on there, and the base has like a chip, which I'm assuming has some sort of like magnet or something. And you set it on this platform that has these lights on it that register, hey, this is the platform on here, therefore Batman is about to appear on screen. And if you take him off, it's like, oh, I no longer register Batman, and phew, Batman disappears from the screen.
No way.
So there's parts
That's
in the
crazy.
game where you have to like they get trapped. Dude, isn't that? And so there's parts in the game where they get trapped, and so like you move them to a different part of the platform, and then they're untrapped. And dude, it's amazing how simply I'm impressed by that. And then he also got like this Jurassic Park like giant for me, it's like 400-piece helicopter for Jurassic Park, or Jurassic World, because my son's a dinosaur fanatic. You might know me. And then like a few hours after that, we go to my dad's house, and then he gets like 5 presents from my dad's. Like, fuck, man, this is insane. Like,
2
this
Christmases.
kid, yeah, like he's only getting practical gifts from us, like for the rest of the year. Like, you get shoes, motherfucker. Shoes and shirts and shit.
Socks for a year. Yeah, right.
Yep. Yeah, dude, he fucking made out like a bandit. You know, with you thinking about childhood, and I had a conversation with a friend of mine at work, and it's amazing. Like, one, I love this guy to death. He's very much my socialist friend. He has,
there's a
tells
t-shirt.
me a lot of, yeah, dude.
I love my socialist friend.
He tells, dude, no shit, yeah. Well, and so he tells me a lot about Marx's critiques on capitalism, and he's a huge fan of Richard Wolff. He's the one who turned me on to Richard Wolff and like Michael Hudson. If you don't know Michael Hudson, he wrote a book called J is for Junk Economics.
Okay. I know Wolff. I've never known about Hudson, though.
Yeah. Hudson, he's been around lately and pretty good. He's definitely right up there with Wolff. And well, he got this really shitty email. And I'm sure people have worked in environments where like your boss says something or sends you an email and you just feel like a piece of shit. And so I was walking by, just saw him, just said something. He just turned around and we just started walking and started talking. And apparently he got this email that really like felt like it belittled the shit out of him.
Wow.
And so he decided, and so rather than just stew on it and just bitch, he decided to talk to his boss about it. And he told her, it's like, hey, I really felt embarrassed. Like, I felt belittled. I felt devalued. And I was like, holy shit, man, good for you.
Wow, standing up for, and especially
talk about
in this kind of environment, that's really hard to do. I mean, I know the Me Too, it has more people getting confidence to stand up and speak and have their voices heard. But for someone and you said that his boss was a woman, right? That's kind of a reversal of roles there, and it can be very intimidating. I know from experience as a man who's a worker under a woman I mean, it's not that I'm concerned with having a woman be in charge of me, but the way that the patriarchy has trained me to operate in the world, it then becomes an added extra little level of kind of put your tail between your legs moment, And so it's really difficult to do that and keep your head held high. And so whatever, I applaud him. Yeah.
Well, and then the way he put it, so like I've been having my Force Awakens moment, I've really played with ideas with him, and he's really helped me understand my mind space more. So he's well aware of my activism. He's well aware of my of my position within OV USA, and I did him a favor, but also did him a bit of a disservice by he talks a big game about politics, and I really kind of helped get him into it a little bit more. But then he got a little overwhelmed and he had to back up. And so it was a bit much for him. But he told me, you know, to be honest, Josh, I don't really feel much different than when I was 16. And here he is, a 30-year-old man.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, it's interesting that that shift into adulthood is so subtle. It's nearly unnoticeable. But I realize that I'm now a man, and I really should stand up for myself, and I don't need to be an asshole about it. But, you know, I don't feel that I should have to feel embarrassed. You know, I feel like I do good work. And, you know, and that was so impressive to me.
Yeah.
You know, this idea that the way that he was able to word that transition from adolescence and teenager into adulthood really is quite subtle. And the only thing that really broke that for me, to where I now have a very large transition for me, is that I joined the Army as a 19-year-old. So that was my jumping off point, where that was my, okay, I've now come out of my chrysalis as a quote unquote man. But without that, I'm sure that I would feel much the same way. And
yeah, man,
I loved how
totally.
poetically he worded that.
Yeah, for folks like you, it's like you get smacked in the face with it, like the boycott war at that moment. So that can be really tough stuff. I think the human being needs to be eased into that kind of scenario, especially with the complication of the world as it is today. And they even say, medically speaking, and maybe you can deny it or back it up, but I think 25-ish is when the brain stops being so moldable and plastic. I mean, we stay plastic, but not as much. And that's when it ceases development and when people should start doing drugs, not before that.
So I can't really say. We don't know enough about the brain as far as when we should or shouldn't start or stop doing drugs. So, for instance, psilocybin is more powerful. And so if you don't know, psilocybin is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. And it's more powerful than serotonin as far as getting synaptic firing. But it also feeds off of the brain picks it up through the serotonin receptors. It's been shown to be safer than weed. In fact, yeah. Oregon is at the stages of potentially legalizing it. That said, as I understand, your personality, the core of who you are, is pretty much cemented by the time you're in junior high. So by the time you're about 12 or 13, you are who you are. There are certain peripheral aspects. You know, you can become more logical. You can prefer to seek more evidence. But the way in which you seek that evidence is basically built in that core personality. Now, from the ages of about 21 to 25 is when your prefrontal cortex quits developing.
That's what I must have read. Okay.
Yeah. So you've got, and that's the logical center of your brain. So when you hear people bitching about teenagers, you know, you're not acting logically. Well, no fucking shit.
They still have
a frontal lobe, motherfucker.
Yeah. And yeah. To clarify slightly, when I say do drugs or supposed to, I mean consuming alcohol, any kind of drug that's currently illegal or illegal, even pharmaceuticals. I'm of the thought that if you can avoid affecting with chemicals from the outside the human mind until after that point, you're better off. That's kind of what I was going with.
I would agree. I would agree with that as a starting point. I don't know enough to say that one thing is worse than the other, but it stands to reason that if your brain is developing and you start kind of messing with certain neurochemicals, that you could potentially alter in a bad way. The really interesting thing here, though, with again coming back to psilocybin, is that it's been shown to cause neurogenesis. So I believe it's your hypothalamus that creates new brain cells. So it creates new brain cells, it creates new synaptic connections, and it also, the great thing about hallucinogens is that it actually causes you to dissolve your ego. And so that's why a lot of people who have, you know, dropped acid or done shrooms, they kind of feel a oneness, almost like an energy of the world that they're a part of, because they're no longer just thinking of the me.
That's definitely the truth.
That's kind of dissolved. Yeah, and it's really fascinating. And there's a theory out there called the stoned ape theory that, you know, talks about that magic mushrooms may be why our brains developed to become as big as fast as they did, along with things like fire that, you know, created bioavailability. But regardless of what tools we have at our disposal, it takes a strong mind for somebody to take a step back. You know, like my friend Andrew here, he said, you know, that transition from that child to that man is so subtle. And I realized that I didn't like the way that I felt. And I can either decide to still feel this way and just bitch about it, or I could decide to actually say something. And my wife has a friend who works there and works in his same department. And so she noticed that he was having a closed door conversation with their boss, and she asked me about it, and she, like, the look on her face and the admiration that she expressed. She said, I can't believe, like, I'm so proud of him. So the only thing I do is I just go outside and I bitch to my friends and just complain on the phone, and I go back and just stew. I'm mad. And the fact that he had, effectively, my words, not hers, that he had the balls to do this is impressive. And so I actually told her, well, look, I mean, you're in a position to be kind of a mentor to him. So I'm pretty sure that it would mean a lot to him if you could actually reach out to him and say, hey, I really like what you did. And you don't need to beat up on your boss by any means, but, definitely encourage that behavior. And I think that this has a means where their boss has gotten a lot of feedback that is not necessarily positive, but it's almost always on exit interviews, never from somebody who plans on staying there. I said, so this really has the opportunity to ripple throughout your team and really help you guys out, because now your boss is faced with this. And then what do? Do I not give a shit? Am I going to be kind of a sociopath and just not give a fuck? Or do I actually care? And do I care about my workforce? Do I care about, the retention, and care about your happiness? And because a happy employee is a productive employee, right?
And that by taking that early action rather than allowing it to sit and fester and let him go find another job and bring it up at an exit interview again, it to me, it would really show that he cares about the company, and it would also show that he cares about that boss. I mean, maybe how he feels about her personally is irrespective of the fact that he gave her an opportunity to grow, and hopefully she took the criticism in that fashion rather than it's the beginning of another snowball effect of argument and quitting and exit interviews.
Yep. Yeah, that's well put. I definitely agree. And I wonder how many of our listeners have been in a position where they're struck dumb by just an email that makes them feel like a piece of shit. And perhaps it was a boss who just wrote a terse email, didn't really think anything of it. Yeah. Or somebody who maybe just doesn't have much of a reason to give a shit. And they haven't been presented with, hey, I have real feelings at the other end of this email. And I'd like you to explore what this did to me, and I'd like to figure out how we can come together, still get the job accomplished, but not demean each other. And it's not every day that, one, you have the ability to do that, or two, that you even have the wherewithal, right? I mean, it takes a strong mind to take a step back and think how do I move forward in this situation?
It only takes one to begin the honest conversation, but it does take more than one to continue it and come to a conclusion. So you can only hope that the other party would be smart enough to recognize that. And you could even parallel this with, pardon me for saying it, it's 2019, but the 2016 election situation with the primary results in the Democratic Party. And that even split off two major factions, the Dem Enter and the Dem Exit, who were both the I'm not voting for her, or I'm holding my nose to vote for her, Hillary Clinton non-supporters, as you could call them. And to address the problem, both of those groups, before they broke up, tried to address the Democratic National Committee and say, hey, look, can we do an autopsy of the problem? Can we please address this? Obviously, you don't have your ear to the ground anymore. You don't hear us. You don't care what we have to say because you used your superdelegates and went after Republican votes, you idiots. So come back over to us. Let's have an actual convention. Let's talk about this. And their response was, even if you sue us, we're not going to let go of the fact that we're a private corporation and we don't need you. So it was like one side tried to reach out, and the other side said, go fuck yourself. So now we've broken up, and now we have people that want to infiltrate and try to take control of it from within. And there's others that say, screw this, I'm never giving them another dime. We're starting a new party ourselves. But neither side is really achieving the results that they wanted.
So when you paint the picture of the DNC saying that we don't need you, I don't feel like you're fully capturing how shitty they put it. Like, they didn't just say we don't need you. They said that we don't even fucking want you. That there is nothing written in our bylaws that suggests that we don't just, and they literally said that we don't go into a back room with cigars and pick who the candidate is. Like
Yeah.
the idea of how gross that is, and the idea that, I mean, the parties were created for the people. People weren't created for the parties.
Right.
And yet we've got this paradigm wrong, because, and you know, you see the Beto O'Rourke's, who people are painting as this progressive champion because he talks a big game, but few people talk about the fact that his wife is a fucking heiress, and he receives incredible amounts of fossil fuel money, which suggests he's got an anchor to the past. And if you have a tie to the past, that's not such a bad idea, such a bad thing. But if you have an anchor, that suggests that you are incapable of moving. And I don't like the idea that he's got an anchor to the past, because an anchor to the past with our current situation, whether it be rising sea levels or climate change, just suggests that we're fucked, man. You know, like Ron Placone said, you know, there's nothing pragmatic about an incrementalist approach to a catastrophic problem. Like that's not okay at all.
Yeah, you can't trust someone with an anchor to the past. I think it might have been at BillySlick in Twitter, who was arguing with someone from Texas who seemed to be a possible Beto bot, but otherwise just a supporter with a low count of followers. I mean, you can kind of look at their profiles and tell who they are. But he said to her that, look, she had said, let's not make this an ad hominem argument. Let's just talk about his policies and not him as a person. And I said, honestly, these days, the way the climate is, BillySlick said, this is the person. The person equals the position that they take. So, of course, I'm making an ad hominem attack. I'm saying that he is not realistic. He is fake. He is pretending to be something he is not. If you look at his past and where his money comes from. And they said, well, why don't we just argue about how corporations shouldn't be taking over the politics? And I'm like, well, why don't we just argue about crayons aren't as good as markers? That's irrelevant. The point is the guy's faking it out, and we're trying to call him on it, and, you know, so be it.
Well, and so depending on how you're forming the ad hominem, like if you say the guy's a piece of shit because he's just this fake, go fuck himself.
No.
And so you're
simply said he takes oil money saying, and he can't be trusted. That's all I said.
Yeah, legit, right? But if you're then saying, well, based upon his policy, there's nothing with his policy and his voting record that suggests he's progressive.
Right.
Therefore, he's fake. And so there's nothing ad hominem about that at all. And so it sounds like BillySlick was definitely taking a reasonable approach without me actually reading the tweets. But it's incredible how politics now are very much the intellectual basketball. Yeah. I will lose my shit no matter how much my team is playing badly, no matter how much my team sucks. I'll lose my shit if you attack my team, because now you're attacking my identity. And that's mind-blowing. Like, we need to be able to question ideas. If we can't question ideas, like, we've already lost, man.
I get attacked for questioning Bernie a lot. And to be honest, I call him out. I say, hey, Bern, what about this or what about that? And I either get, no reaction at all, but like a trillion impressions, or I will start a thread that just tries to blow up my spot saying, how dare you attack? And I almost start to look at these people who are defending him like the people who don't even want to give him a chance, and calling them, looking at him like he's a saint or a savior. And I know that's not the case, but there's sycophants on either side. Even if you agree with them, they're still kind of in the wrong, and they've got to be led back to the actual trail. You can't go so far off the edge that the guy that you believed so much in could just, well, like Trump said, shoot a guy in the middle of the street and you still vote for him. That's crazy. You can't get that far in politics. You got to, take it with a grain of salt, right?
Exactly. You can still be right for the wrong reasons, and the reason why that's problematic, because if the situation changes and you were right for the wrong reasons, if the situation changes, you might be wrong for the wrong reason, because you decided that you can't take in additional input, you can't take in new information and rebuild your calculus and consider what to do with it. We all need to be able to take in new information, chew on it, consider, is this worthwhile? If it is, consider what to do with it. Does it push out new information? Does it alter new information? Does it evolve? Or does it evolve this old information? What is it this new information is doing? And in much the same way that it's the scientific method and the Socratic method, where you ask questions, you see where those questions lead. If those questions lead to new truths, what does this truth do with my current state of facts and my current state of understanding? Does it logically seem to hold water? If it does, well, let's push against it. Let's try to disprove it. If we can't disprove it, well, then based upon our current amount of knowledge and our current amount of evidence, this effectively seems to be a fact. So for now, until I can disprove it, I'm going to use this and move forward in order to, to have my calculus move towards the best evidence at my disposal. But the people who just decide that, and as much as I love Bernie, people who decide like, nope, there's nobody better than Bernie, like, I suspect that Tulsi Gabbard could blow Bernie out of the water in 50 years when she's, an old fucking mummy like he is, right? But, she's only 38?
Yeah.
And so she has the ability just to explode on the scene. Nina Turner, in another 30 years or however long it'd take her to get to Bernie's age. Look at where she is now. And in 30 years, Jesus Christ, right? And so as much as I love the Cornel West, as much as I love the Bernie Sanders, the fact that we have these younger generation, people my age, that are taking that mantle and are nearly as good just without the decades of being alive and being around to stand for these good ideas, that's really heartening to me. If we close them off because we just say Bernie's the only answer, well, then we potentially prevent an even bigger win because we decided that the only way to win is through this one horse, and it just can't be that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that a good takeaway from that would be that, self-reflection, like self-reflection leads to revision, which leads to refinement. And I would say that Socrates would be pretty pleased with that methodology of living your life, right? Like you always have to take in new stuff and see how it relates. And not only should candidates do that through, like keeping in touch with their goddamn constituencies, but the fanatics, the people that are out there holding the signs, the petitioners, the activists, the people who are the leadership, gathering everybody together, they need to do that always. Even when you're in the middle of a campaign, you might notice something and you see, oh my God, their language changed. They started saying access to. They started endorsing the wrong person. Let's keep a wicked eye. And no, I'm not talking about AOC. I'm talking about the other ones out there. I'm really digging what she does, especially with the furlough comment saying that Congress should suspend their pay as well. Why the hell does Congress get paid during those?
Well, that's a great point. But the thing is AOC did actually change her language, and she deserved to be questioned.
She did.
She didn't need to be burned at the stake, like I have mentioned before. But she absolutely deserved to be questioned. Nobody's above question. Nobody's above reproach. And this is a place that we need to be in. And this is coming back to the hallucinogen conversation.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things hallucinogens can do for you is they can take you to the darkest place of your brain, and since it dissolves your ego, you don't have to beat yourself up over it. You can review the darkest places of your past and learn how to move past it, learn how to heal it, and not just continually beat yourself up over it. In much the same way that if you make a mistake and you feel like an idiot, usually you'll spend a few hours to be like, fuck, I'm such a moron. Fuck, holy shit. Well, trauma works the same way. You replay the trauma over and over and over in your head, rebuilding these neural pathways, rebuilding this need to traumatize yourself over and over and over. And these hallucinogens can take you to those neural pathways, tap into that, heal that, move past it, and you don't need to beat yourself up over it. And so this is another place where, I know that many children are going to have a lot of trauma, whether that be traveling 1,000 miles across desert to get to our southern border to get put into a dog kennel, or because you are a captured child soldier in Africa somewhere, or because you got your family blown the fuck up because of American imperialism. And so that's where I find it hard to have a hard and fast rule to say that children should never have any of these drugs, but they should probably never have them outside of a clinical setting. And I hope that we can.
Too many people should have them outside of a clinical setting, or at least
Yeah.
so they can figure out how to keep the dosage low, right? Because there is a point where you can hurt yourself if you take too much.
There could be. I don't really know, but the world's leading mycologist, a guy by the name of Paul Stamets. So this guy, first time he ever ate shrooms, this guy apparently had a debilitating stutter. And he knew he was a smart guy, but he just stuttered, so everyone thought he was a dummy. And so he took about 10 grams, which is fucking insane.
Jesus.
5 grams is the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Dude, legit.
What?
So for anyone out there who's never done shrooms,
Hey,
like
maybe
if you take about 2 to 3 grams, you might start seeing a few visuals. You're gonna feel a little funny. You'll probably get a little sense of euphoria. You take 5 grams and you're gonna be pretty lost inside your head. So this guy took 10 grams and apparently climbed this fucking tree in the middle of like a thunderstorm. Realized while he was up it, like, holy fuck, I'm in a tree in a thunderstorm. There's lightning, and if I live through this, like, there's no reason for me to have a stutter anymore. Like, look, Paul, you're not a dumb guy. And so he created this mantra he repeated to himself over and over and over again for hours, saying, I'm no longer going to stutter. I'm no longer going to stutter. I'm no longer going to stutter. The very next day, he's walking by, and there's this really attractive woman who says, "Hi, Paul. How are you doing?" He says, "I'm fine, thank you." No stutter. And from then on, he basically never stuttered ever again.
Wow.
So there is a way in which we can tap into almost a supernal nature within our brain, because our brains know, like, hey, this is where shit's fucked up. Let's figure out how we can fix it. And if you have the ability, the wherewithal, whether it be a clinical setting or you're just strong enough of mind, perhaps these can lead us to a better place. But I don't necessarily need a world where people are just dropping acid just to drop acid. I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. But I'm not gonna go out and just condone it just for the sake of it.
Perhaps we could quarantine a whole state and call it a wizard colony and let people do whatever they want in there.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Just to see where
you have a bunny ranch, and you got a bunny ranch in Nevada, right? Where if you can go and you can have a transactional relationship with a very attractive woman,
a safe woman, by the way,
coitus,
who's tested all the time.
A safe woman.
Yeah.
Yep. That's regulated. That's taxed. That's she is up on her vaccines. She's not exploited. She doesn't have some pimp beat the fuck out of her because she's in some black market. Right. And so you could effectively do the same thing with basically an opium den, but a regulated one.
Yeah. I don't see why not. Well, we'll get there.
I don't see why not either.
It's in the future.
I'm not really sure how I got on that tangent, but
standing up to your boss takes chutzpah. And standing up to your boss in a relative way that makes it conducive to a positive conversation rather than an argument takes class. And your pal there has both. And I encourage other people out there who feel like they're getting exploited or slighted by the people who are above them to always take that stand and just try to do it with composure, right? Like, you're not out to make an enemy. You're out to potentially help a fellow human being who happens to be able to decide if you're hired or fired. And actually, in the state of Maine, there's no unions here. They call it right to work, but it actually means right to fire for any reason whatsoever. Hell, if I just said some horrible shit about somebody on his podcast, I could probably just get canned the next day, right? But not so in a union place.
Yeah, we got the same thing here in Utah, which is, they could literally make it up. And I understand some of the ideas behind a right to work. Unfortunately, it's pretty much exploited by corporations against the working person. Yeah. And so, I'm very much against a right to work environment. And it effectively, the most insidious thing right to works do is that if there is a unionized workplace, what they can do is they can force the union to represent non-dues paying individuals.
That's how they get rid of them.
Because they don't have to pay dues. And that's how they get rid of them, is they just bankrupt them. Yeah. And it's super callous, and it's a great way to make sure that you've got no representation and that you've got nobody to look out for you.
Super callous, fragilistic, expedite, atrocious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well played.
Anyway, and another thing, and I just want to also say, that there can be bad leadership in unions too. They're not always the cleanest things in the world. So for that, they can get overzealous with their dues. They can go a little too far with their clout. They even take advantage of some people that join the union. So I'm not saying there shouldn't be unions. I'm just saying that everything should be kept in check. You can't claim, well, if one side's bad, that must be the other side is good. And you should always keep that in mind in politics and life, with your parents, with your kids, you know?
Well, and that's a fantastic point. Coming back to the primary garbage with 2016.
Yeah.
You know, Hillary Clinton was endorsed by some of the biggest union leaders in this country outside of the input from the actual union members themselves.
Exactly.
So the union
Especially
leadership absolutely can become very corrupt. Yeah. And so, you know, we need to have antagonistic relationships. You know, the fourth estate, you know, our media should be antagonistic towards government, and government should be antagonistic towards media in certain capacity in order to keep them honest, right?
Yeah, right.
And so we've got a situation now where, you know, people just want access. You know, these union bosses probably just wanted access. Hey, we'll endorse Hillary Clinton as long as she does this for us.
Yeah.
If it helps our membership, well then maybe that'll be okay. But, you know, and the same thing with the media now. Well, hey, we want access. If it helps the readers, well, maybe that'll be okay. But really, we're just after access, so then we can go ahead and get more clickbait and then make more money. It's unfortunate. That antagonistic relationship is what creates the survival of the fittest.
Right on,
the
dude.
Cheetah chasing the gazelle. That's not a happy relationship, but it makes the cheetah faster and it makes the gazelle faster, and they both thrive off that.
How are you going to get a strong, tiny tree if you don't bonsai that motherfucker?
Right. Well, and, you know, a tree without wind blowing against it and trying to beat the shit out of it every day is one with a weak root structure, one with a weak trunk, and it kind of will slump over. And the strongest trees endure the harshest storms. You may not see it that way, and you may not have been there for those storms to see it, but, you know, that's their life is their testimony. And I'd really like to see people to be less seduced by comfort, and more willing to, you know, again, just question their current belief. Throw yourself outside of your comfort zone, because a comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. Period. Nothing. And so throw yourself off your comfort zone, figure out where you land. Yeah, you may fall on your face, brush yourself off, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Well, figure out where you went wrong, see how you can make yourself better, adapt, overcome, and continuously, you know, reinvent yourself.
Hone it and own it. Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Josh, did you see the t-shirt that we have for the podcast?
Yeah, dude. Great job with that.
Bad job with that segue, but great. Folks out there at home, I really like the way it came out. I used one of those easy-to-use t-shirt companies, and the link's on the website. I can't think of the company name right now. I'm not really pitching anything, but our t-shirts are cool, and if we sell at least 5, they all actually get shipped. If we don't sell at least 5, whenever we do a run of them, and we're going to do a lot of runs, like with different slogans and stuff that Josh or Jesse will come up with, some dirty, some poetic, whatever. But if we don't sell at least 5, then nobody gets one. So I'm just throwing that out there. If anyone's got, I think there's like a sweatshirt for $32. I know it's a little steep, but we actually get a whole $1 out of it if you buy it. So we're not out to get rich. We're just trying to kind of get the promotion, and plus the stuff is pretty nice, pretty sweet t-shirts. So check it out for sure. And Josh, man, I missed you guys. It had been a couple of weeks. We all took some time off to be with our families and loved ones. I just have to say, I am looking forward to the bright future of 2019 for this podcast. We have a whole lot of interviews getting lined up. Actually, some other people coming into the studio that we've been meeting on Facebook. I know you've been looking at some different candidates in Utah, right?
Yeah, I'd be really interested. There's a local rapper by the name of Ryan Parker who ran for a local House district, didn't win, and rather than just quit, he's moving on, and he's going to run for Salt Lake City Council. And so I'm glad to hear that. This is a guy whose biggest priority is helping the homeless.
That is definitely legit. Did you see, speaking of helping the homeless, I saw a little video online of this little kid running around in like a Superman suit, and his parents let him go to all over I think it might have been Virginia, and then he went to DC, and he was just handing out food to the homeless. And he must have dished out like hundreds of dishes of food and stuff. And that was what he chose to do for his Christmas gift.
Dude, that's awesome.
Like I'm talking 7-year-old or something.
That's cool. You know, we've been talking about having the strength to stand up for yourself and the strength to, you know, to put yourself outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And in a sense, that's kind of a way to have a way of reinventing yourself, or, you know, renewing your philosophy, a way of being reborn, you know, the death of the old self, the rebirth of the new self. And what's interesting is that this year, on the 2nd of January, so almost the very first day it possibly could be in 2019, I will be at court in order to talk about standing up for the least amongst us, you know, migrants that are in dog kennels on our southern border, because we see brown people as less than human, and we see them as a political football, as a means to score political points outside of the human condition, and it's mind-blowing to me. So I don't really know exactly how things will play out, but I'm proud of myself for stepping outside my comfort zone. I have little control over how things will play out, but what control I do have, I've employed, you know, I've hired a lawyer. I don't plan on going in there running my mouth. I plan on being very logical and methodical and guided. It's entirely possible that they will just drop charges, but, you know, we'll see. I kind of hope they don't, because I don't really know how they could hold the charges against me and have them stick. And I want to be able to blow this up in the same way that we have people who I think for very shitty and selfish reasons are very vehement and rabid over the Second Amendment. I'd really like to see people for very, very selfless reasons be very vehement for the First Amendment, because that is by far our most important, which is why it was first.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have the ability to think, and speak your mind, then kind of already lost from the get-go.
Right, and you can't accomplish any of the other rights and liberties that we enjoy, and are slowly but surely being taken away from the bottom up, if you think about it, right? I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, man, I am very proud of you, and I really hope they do go to trial so that you can at least get on record as speaking your mind and expressing exactly what the First Amendment means. And for anyone to claim that they're trying to help children and then deny what you said was accurate is a fucking fool. That is absolute truth from me.
Yeah, well, thanks, dude. I appreciate your support. And hopefully, really, part of this is not just the support for the children. So there's a little bit of selfless standing up to help these kids. But there's a certain amount of selfishness in that. I really do hope that people will tune into, like, well, who's this loud, obnoxious white guy who's saying, well, let's help brown people? That's weird.
Yeah.
And then if they look a little bit further, well, what is this Our Voice USA that he's condoning? And have them look a little bit further and figure out, like, oh shit, this is free software where I could run for office and actually help my community. And so I'm hoping that I can use this and I can funnel it in the same way that a Tai Chi master, which I am not one, but in the same way a Tai Chi master uses the exact energy you throw against them to throw you on their ass. I hope I can use this proto-fascist energy to stifle my voice, to just explode it, and to make it, and just to overwhelm these proto-fascists with actual people of substance and people who don't shy away from debate, don't shy away from strong policy, and actually want to stand up, like this Ryan Parker I mentioned of, who wants to stand up for homelessness, or people like you who want to stand up to allow and help people who don't believe in corporate PAC money, who don't believe in having a $2,000 a plate gala, you know, just to be able to make sure that you rub elbows with all the rich fucks. While dismissing, you know, the people working 2 and 3 jobs. You know, if you love your country, make it better.
Yeah,
you know, it's again this idea of let's start from a place of questioning. You know, are we truly at the best place? Good ideas need to be out there. Good ideas need to be proselytized. Yeah. They don't need to be privatized.
Anywho, so
shit, man, this has been great. It's out there. You know, I'm happy to. I'd love input from our listeners. If you have any, you know, if you like what I write, you like what I talk about, I'd love some input as ideas of what you would think would be a good thing for me to write about. It's something that I may need some of your input for as far as places to start researching it, depending on what the issue is. But oh, hey, one last thing I want to throw out there.
Yeah.
When we were on the Speakeasy with Kelly and with Pat, Pat the Burner. Pat the Burner, as you know, is Peter Douche liaison. Well, and so I was talking about graphene and how I have a big boner for graphene. And graphene, for those who don't know, is a single molecule thick. So it's a two-dimensional substance. That's a single molecule of carbon, or maybe it's atom. Anyway, I think it's molecule. Anyway,
I think it's a molecule
that is fused together. Yeah, that's fused together with an energy source, and so it creates this octagonal map of a superconductive substance that is something as thick as saran wrap would take the weight of an elephant to poke through like a sharpened pencil. So it's just incredibly strong. It's not just durable, but it's also not brittle. Like it you can actually bend it. And well, anyway,
Wow.
They found a much easier way to mass produce this. So this is something that has been very difficult for people to figure out how to make it. Well, apparently, as I read, if you have your carbon in an enclosed chamber and you release acetylene gas, which acetylene is used for welding.
Okay.
You release acetylene with oxygen. It doesn't even take a fire; it just takes a spark to set it off, because acetylene is incredibly unstable.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much to set it off, and it's hot enough to fuse it together. And so this is something that actually allows for a cheap way to be able to mass produce. Why this is interesting is because with renewable energy, it's hard to transmit the energy from the point of collection to the end user, but then also graphene can be made to be used as a membrane to desalinate water. And right now, desalinating water is incredibly expensive, incredibly hard. And so you can use this to desalinate water with rising sea levels here in Utah. You might think, well, Josh, you live in a fucking desert. Well, one, we're the second driest state in the nation. Two, in the last 10 years, we had an influx of 400,000 people. We're a state of about 3 million people. 400,000 is a lot of people.
Wow.
Three,
yeah,
a lot of people that come over. Yeah, a lot of people that come over from California. And so California's going to need this with rising sea levels. Florida's going to need this. There's going to be a lot of places that are going to need this. Our groundwater is full of salt.
And what they say is what the trend seems to be that I read in different things, that once the dispute over oil is over and done with, it's going to be water that everyone goes to war over, clean, potable water.
Yep.
And if this thing can take off, shit, you might be able to avoid all disaster.
Yep. And so if you can actually have potable water by having this membrane, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
And then like this, not only is it a superconductor that can be used to, remap our electrical grid. I mentioned how strong it is. I mean, this is something that you could probably use to line the International Space Station to prevent it from micrometeorite disaster.
Dude.
And so like it could literally change the entire way in which we interact with our world. And if it's made from pure carbon, what else is pure carbon that is a language of which that we demand to be spoken about? Coal. We demand that we talk about coal jobs, whether we think that it's a foregone conclusion that coal is a thing of the past or not. We demand that we talk about it. And what I would love to see people do is to say, look, I'm here to create coal jobs. And I'm here to help coal because oil and gas has really fucked them over the last 100 years.
Right.
Have that get people to say, well, what do you mean oil and gas? So this is fossil fuel, right? Well, if you look at a map when oil and gas was being produced in the early 1900s, it's actually what was the major decline in coal jobs.
Yeah.
And then if you actually mine for coal, use that coal, that pure carbon for the graphene, you can create coal jobs. You can make oil and gas obsolete.
Holy shit.
And then you can also put these workers, the oil and gas workers, in an actual viable job, while hopefully bankrupting the fucking oil and gas tycoons that get us in all these unnecessary wars in the first place for their absurd amount of money.
Fuck, you just blew my mind. That is the actual clean coal revolution you just described. That could bring back all the fucking jobs in West Virginia if they focused on that instead of burning the shit. Dude. Holy crap.
And imagine if somebody just said, hey, I want to create coal jobs, but let's not turn it from a solid to a gas. let's keep it in solid form and just reshape it.
Single-handedly
reshape the face of coal,
fixing
and
the water
have
problem.
Coal graphene.
Dude.
Yeah, right. And then also you could say, but you know what? I also don't want do you remember the guy's name who was in Kentucky? A piece of shit racist guy that was going against Mitch McConnell, talking about how Mitch McConnell's for the Chinaman.
Oh,
and
God.
He was a coal mine tycoon. So he went to prison. He went to prison because people died in his coal mine.
Jesus.
When he got out of prison, he ran for fucking Senate. That's how gross our system is.
Wow.
He ran for Senate, for U.S. Senate, after he got out of prison. And so what I would like to see is coal mine cooperatives. You know, there's nobody who knows what sort of safety conditions that a coal mine needs, and the people who are down there digging for the shit. Not some asshole who's just trying to make millions upon millions of dollars and doesn't give a fuck if you die. So, you know, let's make coal mining cooperative businesses. Let's have a cooperative front with Graphene. Let's stifle the water wars, and then let's just reshape the face of our infrastructure.
Yeah, man.
The Eisenhower infrastructure bill created $100 per $1 that was spent into it. I suspect Graphene would probably be something similar.
That definitely, dude. Right on point, man. You got the whole thing worked out. And, well, you know, in theory, I have to say, if it was pitched just right, then you could draw the kind of attention necessary to get eco-scientists to come up with ways for coal miners to go into their respective mines and not end up getting all of the health problems that they normally incur from doing the mining work. And with coal miners being in the collective rather than being just employees, they probably would have a way bigger say in how they might be able to go about refining the methods that we use to get this out of the ground. And maybe even replacing it with something else so that we're not leaving giant gaping holes ready to collapse on themselves. But
Exactly.
there's other issues that we'd have to work out, of course, mountaintop removal, all that other nonsense that's going on right now in West Virginia. But yeah, man,
Right.
that is a shining star on the horizon that I think people should be running towards.
And I bet Richard Ojeda would be very interested in hearing this.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Well, Josh, that's a hell of an update. I may have to post that by itself.
Yeah.
But I am so glad you were able to break away from all your festivities to be able to come and talk to all of us and help me put another one of these together. And our other co-host, Jesse, is going to jump in. I think on top of that, we have an interview with Savage Joy from Real Progressives. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll probably get segued in right after we finish talking here, Josh. But dude, it's a fucking pleasure, man, of course, as always.
Oh, dude, yeah. I appreciate you taking the time as well. Sorry if I rushed you a bit. You know, as always, I really enjoy these conversations. I'm also really excited about Savage Joy. You know, I've been following her for a while. Recently became friends with her on Facebook. Yeah, I'm glad that she's taken you up on the opportunity to have an interview. And I love what Real Progressives are pushing for. I don't think that any one person or any one group has the single one idea, but she is definitely pushing for much of the needed change that we talk about.
It's a
that
piece
really
of the puzzle.
excites me that she's on board with. Exactly, and she's ready to get with the program.
Absolutely.
Boom. That's what I'm saying.
Boom. All right, man.
Hey, Happy New Year's. May the force be with you, sir.
Awesome. Take it easy, Jeff.